Call to order the City of Keystone Heights Budget and Finance Committee meeting. Today is Thursday, August 26, 3 p.m. Ms. City Manager, would you call roll, please?
Mayor Karen Lake.
Here.
Councilman Tony Brown.
Present.
All right. Your Budget and Finance Committee is present.
Thank you. Are there any public comment cards?
I have none.
Thank you. Item 1 on the agenda is a review 2021-2022 fiscal budget review. I'm going to let Ms. Rakowski start us off.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So on the dais today, you have similar packets to what you had at the last workshop when we reviewed some of the asks from the public. One packet are the asks that came in that you discussed briefly at the last meeting, and then the other one are the budgets similar to what you saw at the last meeting. The only change in your ask pile is from Ms. Barbara Franklin on behalf of the CalRBA/Lions Club. She has withdrawn her application for the Halloween event to be at Sunrise Park and has asked for a road closure of State Road 21 from Lakeview down to State Road 100. The monetary ask has changed to up to $1,500 to support law enforcement for the road closure, and then she's also put in a separate ask of $500 to support the band. And so that's something that you'll have conversations about today if you want to supply more specifically the band ask. That's not something that has been done in the past. Not saying that it can't, but that's a separate conversation. I did put in the budget in the CRA the $1,500 ask in anticipation that the approval would go through. We do typically fund safety and security for law enforcement. Okay. So other than that, the asks remain the same as you heard when we discussed at the last meeting.
Okay. So you want to describe for us what we're doing this year in the Lakes budget, please?
Sure, absolutely. So the Lake budget stays the same. We're going to we do have the ask from Ms. Vivian Katz on behalf of Savor Lakes for the $10,000. That was something that was discussed last fiscal year. We withdrew that. We do have in the bank right now $39,000. So that $10,000 will bring us up to $49,000 ish.
And I support that. How about you, Tony?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Fantastic. The rest is just general maintenance, and then we can look at as projects come up if we want to spend any additional money.
Okay, so on the general maintenance of the lakes, I have to say I love the way the maintenance on the lakes looks now. Is that fundable at that same level as we did last year at the $6,000?
It is, with a little bit of cushion room, so we're working with Mr. Fitz from Southern Vegetation to help clear out the remainder of that triangle that's out there.
Right.
If you look at the lake, you'll understand what I'm talking about. He has to do that in phases, is to not put the chemicals in the water all at once. So
okay.
we are anticipating that.
But $6,000 will maintain at the level we're looking at right now?
We'll maintain, and then as we move forward, if there's additional clearing or things of that nature, then that can come in front of the council.
Okay. Any questions, Mr. Brown? Okay.
All right.
My next budget on the pile is infrastructure.
Infrastructure, and then also, while we're discussing infrastructure, if you can go through your asks pile, we do have a packet in there from Sheer Construction. And this is where we'll be talking about both of these simultaneously.
So after the ask pile was the first one was up was Barbara Franklin.
That's correct, and that's the withdrawal of her original application plus the road closure that you'll see. Okay, then there's a stapled packet that starts with impact play.
Yes.
And I believe that's where the sheer construction was put in.
Okay.
I'm sorry, there's really no good way to go through budget and finance with all the papers that we have to do. So
I know. You guys do a good job. Okay, so sheer construction, and we're looking at infrastructure.
Yes, so if you'll go back to the infrastructure budget, we're anticipating $164,000 coming in from state income, with about $1,000 coming in from interest. So we're looking at $165,000 coming in new income to our infrastructure account. I didn't budget for a whole lot other than in talking with our new engineers, DMRP, and discussing an entire right-of-way, which includes drainage plan. We're looking at a scope and fee of roughly, and I say roughly because I don't have the fee yet, of about $75,000. So as we're discussing possibly changing engineers, and when we went out for RFPs, the concept was that we would be looking at, this would be a year of planning to move forward for the next 5-10 years, and having those same conversations with our engineer of looking at our city as a whole. Our roads are in good shape from the windshield that Michael Baker provided us years ago. They'll reassess the entire right-of-way to include sidewalks, drainage, and the potential of stormwater management.
And then the other thing we talked about too is the flow, downtown flow in terms of
And traffic, all of that would be within our right-of-way plan as opposed to just a roadway improvements plan. And then that
Parking.
scope, we're looking at roughly about $75,000.
Okay.
And then I just put in $7,500 there for sidewalk repair. Now,
Is this repair or also including new?
well, sidewalks in general. Generally, we have about $7,500, between $500 and $7,500 of sidewalk repair every year that we pull out a couple of blocks here and there. Blocks, I'm talking the 4x4 blocks, and pour additional sidewalk or replacing sidewalk.
Does Kenny know what he's going to finish out his budget this year, which sidewalks he's repairing?
Yes, he does. So unfortunately, Mr. Hall is out at the moment. He had to take a couple of days. However, he does have a sidewalk repair list, finished cracks and things, lifts that need to be replaced.
Just for my information, can you forward that list to me, please?
Sure. So out of the remainder of the $165,000 income that we're anticipating this year, it's leaving you with about $82,500. I've also included a list of CDs and their mature date and rate.
So one of them is already mature.
One is already matured. It's in there at the moment at $61,000. Council can choose at their next meeting based on the recommendations of the Budget and Finance to continue rolling that over, or if we want to pull that out. We do have two coming up on the 12th of September at $82,000 apiece, and then the $59,000 coming up in October. Ms. Barbie is working on an interest rate for all of those CDs. It's minimal. It always is.
Right.
So with that being said, in our infrastructure checking account, if you will, we've got about $273,000. Now, we're discussing this a little bit more in depth than what we typically do in previous years, because we do have the beach renovations coming in at the request from council for sheer construction at about $426,000. There's a couple of things to look at. Is that we need to consider what projects are priorities, how you want to move forward. We do have the capability of asking for grants through Clay County. We've talked a little bit about the partnership that we're going to have with their grant team, that they can go out and apply for specific grants, ADA compliance and things of that nature, with monies that are available. So it's really up to the Budget and Finance to discuss what projects how you want to prioritize your projects, if you want to do any of these beach projects, and then if you want to utilize any of your CD funding or CIP reserves, if you will.
This is a side note, just
Sure.
to kind of reach wide to see if we can find other additional dollars. Remember way back in the day when we were doing, or we're still doing, the Rails to Trails, and the county had indicated it would set aside some money for us in order to build out the rest of that trail? It was like $275,000, 250,000, something like that. Do you remember that? So
That was back in Commissioner Rollins' days. Yes.
do you remember that, Tony?
Yeah.
Okay, so my question is, I like the funding we have now. I think we can do what we want to do with what we have based on our ability to pay for ourselves. But I also know that it'd be nice for the county to chip in, because it is going to be used by county residents in addition to city residents. Is there any will from our commissioner and the commission to at least look at, participating in this project if we build out the entire thing?
If we build out the entire beach, so I've had conversations with the county manager and also with our commissioner. They're very excited about the projects that we have at the beach, very hopeful, but it's really going to come down to what the city's capable or willing to fund and what we're looking for partnerships for, as well as we're looking for additional dollars. If the city is willing to, and it all comes down to sorry for the terms, skin in the game.
Right.
How much the city is going to put in, and then what additional improvements we want to do after we can fund what we're doing. They're excited to partner with the projects as much as they can, looking at creative ways, if it's funding from their CIP or if and then going out and assisting in grants. So a long answer to a short, or a long explanation to a short answer is yes, they're absolutely willing to come to the table and have those conversations. We just need to figure out what our skin is first.
So I'll go back to that in a second. So where we're really going to get caught up, I think, in terms of rehabilitating our parks is the theme park right behind us. You know, my impetus right now would be to allow the city to take care of the beach, and then to get some assurances from the county that when it comes time for us to do this part back here, that they'll do their grant writing for us and help us find the funding for this park back here, because this one's going to be I think more expensive than even the beach to rehab. So
that is, if it depends on what piece you're looking at. A couple of years ago, the tennis courts, to resurface the tennis courts, were upwards of about $250,000 to do both of them the right way. And that's restructured now. Those prices have since gone up. I don't know what that cost is going to be at the moment. But absolutely, if the city wants to take on the beach, or we can talk about some creative thinkings, and speaking with DMRP, there's possibilities for grants out there as well. But it's a matter of what you can do it now with the funds that you have, or you can wait in hopes that we're going to have a grant. And then, so I'm just presenting today what funds you do have available. I think that the going out to do the theme park partnering with the county on that would be a fantastic idea.
Mr. Brown?
Well, looking at these numbers, instead of, I think we really need to look at the restrooms. Should be priority at that beach. If we have, we got the money to do that. I would put those as a priority, those 2 restrooms.
So in the pavilion restrooms, does that include the standalone and the new facility at the pavilion?
So there are 2 line items for restrooms. There's restroom building, which is the current building that we have right now, and it's just rehabbing that brick building and adding additional storage to the back of it. Utilizing, I don't want to say vandalism proof, but vandalism resistance fixtures and upgrading the plumbing. Yep. That's the $87,000. Pavilion restroom at about $170,000 is adding is pushing out the wall where the kitchen area is to the deck. And we've reviewed these plans with sheer construction at the last council meeting, but pushing out the wall to the deck so you're not overlooking the generator from the deck, and allowing one single ADA compliant restroom inside the pavilion for the use of those who are either renting or down there for a function.
Okay, so between the 2 restroom line items, we're looking at $256,000.
Yes.
So in our infrastructure account, we have 273. So ostensibly, we could take care of the restrooms with what we have in our infrastructure account.
So you could take care of the restrooms with what you have in the infrastructure account. Now that's going to take your checking account, if you will, down to the bare minimum, but allow for the CDs. And so then the council will have to make a decision on if you would like to roll over those CDs or cash one of them in.
So I'm inclined to support the restrooms, for sure. Anything else, Mr. Brown?
So on the CDs, we have to, I understand we have to have approval to take those out and use them for anything. But,
Well, let me ask this of Ms. Rakowski. We could fly low and to the ground. We could fly really low and just try and skate by to the next fiscal budget year. What would you like to see to happen?
I'll be honest with you, my personal preference, based on what we're trying to accomplish with the pavilion/community center, I'd like to see a restroom inside that pavilion.
Mhm.
We have been able to and renovate the existing restrooms. I agree that restrooms need to be priority. From an aesthetic standpoint, and then a use, both the covered picnic area and that stage does need help, so I understand the importance of both of those. So if it's the will of the Budget and Finance to recommend to council to make the restrooms priority, once we get the contract signed with Clay County, I can sit down with their team to see how realistic grants are for which projects, and then we can come back. But for a quick turnaround time, those restrooms are definitely needed.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of the CDs then, I'm okay if Tony agrees that the one that's already come due.
63?
Or
Or I'm sorry, no,
61?
266.
Yes,
61,000?
yes. If we want to pull that back into CIP and then look at the other three in terms of keeping those, would you feel comfortable in that position, Ms. Rakowski, in terms of the rest of the year?
I think that would be a good play to accomplish to get our restrooms taken care of. Now, like I said, our roads right now are in decent condition, and then we'll have to really consider how we move forward with the right-of-way plan. But I agree, if we want to take care of our restrooms, that's probably one of the best options.
Mr. Brown?
So you're saying take the infrastructure money, do the 2 restrooms, take the 61,000 for the CD, and put it in, also into the restrooms, or to another, like?
Well, just to CIP.
It would be moved into the checking account of the CIP.
Okay, I'm good with that.
So then you would have approximately $80,000 in CIP, correct?
We'd have a little bit more than $80,000 because we have an $82,000 surplus, or not surplus, but we have an $82,000 profit.
Oh, yes, you have,
cash.
yep, okay, so you'd
So
be in
we're
good shape.
we're still maintaining a healthy checking balance, I
Okay.
think, I believe.
So restrooms it is for sure, and then we will move forward and look at what the county can do in terms of helping us grant write for the pavilion and for the stage. Because the stage could be two phases as well.
Let me ask a question. On the platform in the picnic area, what is the tourist, development for Clay County? Do they have any kind of grants and stuff that could be applied for this?
So the TDC does have grants. I will have to sit down with Kimberly a little bit more specifically on these projects. Their grants are typically made so that you will bring out-of-county residents in, and not to necessarily redo what you already have, but to bring something else in, a tourist destination. It's not unheard of, it's not unreasonable, but it's something too that I can sit down with the county and see if they'd be interested in throwing a little bit of money our way just to help with complete the beach renovations as well. As you say, the pavilion and the entire beach is something that they'll be looking at.
Yeah,
The
'cause
residents will be utilizing
that's
it
what's
too.
gonna bring these people in.
Sure.
And just as an aside, have we heard when the paddle kiosk might be?
They are running behind with material due to material delivery. We are slated for the last week of August for up to the first 2 weeks of September for both our location, and then they're installing one at the King Street boat ramp.
Okay. So 2-3 weeks out, is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Brown, do you have any other questions for the infrastructure? You're cool with what we're moving forward?
Yep.
All right, CRA.
CRA, included within the CRA budget, we do have the asks of, well, let me start over. We're looking at about $87,000 between the city funding and county funding for the next fiscal year. We have we'll end the year with roughly about $110,000 in our bank. So we're looking at just shy of $200,000 for conversation purposes within our CRA. I've bumped up our advertising fee drastically for conversation purposes. We do have some contracts that we're looking at possibly advertising our downtown area, flyers, social media, things like that, and we'll look at that at the next council meeting. Insurance and liability, those are fixed costs, supplies, copies, mailing, postage, supplies. All of that's in there annually. Our audit fee of $1,800 is an annual expense. Clay County Economic Development Council has an annual ask of $2,000 that comes to us every year. They put in that ask again, but we've been doing that for years, so was automatically budgeted until it's decided to remove that.
And I don't remember, what did JJ ask for this year? Did he ask for anything different or just a
It's
continuation?
the continued $2,000.
Okay,
Last fiscal year, you bumped that up from $1,000 to $2,000.
okay.
We have legal fees of $5,000. The SBDC, Mr. Chris Abbott's is requesting $1,000 again just for his services here in Keystone Heights. He has several clients that are within inside the city limits, but for privacy reasons, we can't disclose who they
Okay.
are.
What is that, small business?
The Small Business Association, Miss Ann Grogan was, yeah. She had brought that into our area. Going down to events and festivals, we have the $1,500 that was asked from the Jordan's Foundation for the 5K run. I've got $5,000 slated as a kickoff for our events that we have. We've talked about upping the city's portion of events, having markets and things like that, and so just a starter fee. $7,500 is an annual ask from our Country Day for fireworks. Those conversations are still in the works. They're looking at possibly next week of making a decision on whether or not they want to move forward with our Country Day as it is, or if they're looking for the city to come in and assist in that. For budgetary reasons, I put the $7,500 in there. We're going to need, if the city chooses to take it on, we'll need funds for fireworks, and so I think that would be good seed money.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
And I don't know if this is the place to ask it, but under 4th of July, if the city was to take that over, and
Yes.
for years and years, we've done the budget for fireworks. What other kind of expense would come to the city if we were to take it over completely?
So it's a difficult question to answer, and this is what I've shared with the board members who've approached me from our Country Day. Is our Country Day is very specific driven. They have a 2-week time period to where they raise funds, and they've got a couple of sponsors that come in. We as a city can look at hosting events throughout the year to start collecting money to put towards that, so vendor fees, sponsorships and things like that, so it can all go into it. So our Country Day events as you see them now might not be the way that it is moving forward. Case in point, the street dance is held outside city limits. That's not something that the city could put on, but we could look at alternatives, markets, fairs, things like that to generate that income to help support. We would have the full contract for fireworks, any additional safety and security that comes along with it, and the portalettes.
Yeah, their budget is usually around $18,000 to $20,000 a year
Yes.
to produce the event, the 2-day event. But going forward, if the city does take it over in whatever shape or form that ends up being,
That entire cost would come to the city,
That
but there
entire-
would be different avenues into where the city could recover those costs.
and knowing that even though we have $7,500, normally the committee spends between $10,000 and $12,000 in actual fireworks. Fireworks. So this is really just a seed, that we.
Oh, well.
However, similar to that of Orange Park and Green Cove Springs, I don't think that it would be the appropriate course of action for the agency or the city to fund the entire event. They, like I shared with you at the last meeting, both Green Cove Springs and the city of Orange Park, they're events are self-sufficient. So they bring in money to support those events, and it goes right back into that
Yeah.
event. And so we would work to do the same.
Yeah, yeah,
And so it wouldn't be a taxpayer burden, if you will.
And we could still apply for the tourism
yes.
grant. just
Yes,
like
and so I've
RPPA
had
does.
in-depth conversations as far as advertising things of that nature go.
The seasonal decorations, spit it out right. These are a continuation of the Christmas theme and then the July 4th theme that we've spoken about in the past.
Yes.
Okay.
So that was, we put in $15,000 this current fiscal year, bought the banners and the wreaths to go on the light fixtures, and so this upcoming fiscal year, we'll continue on the decorations.
Okay.
And this
Yes.
really doesn't have anything to do with budget, but what are we doing with the old stuff? We trashing it? Or are we giving it away?
They have,
Can you have a flea
Public
market?
Works
A
has,
city municipal flea market?
has torn apart those poor angels to complete as many angels as we possibly can to, so we probably have about a third of the angels still intact, and we can look at repurposing those in other areas for decorations.
Instead of hanging them, you could make brackets and
Yes,
mount them on the ground.
yes.
Okay.
Wow, okay, so grant, can we go back to grant?
Yes, grant is the facade grant. So we looked at putting aside
Yes.
$50,000. We'll talk about that at the next coming CRA meeting, the do's and don'ts, the guidelines of the facade grant. And there's $50,000 put aside that we can exhaust towards that until it's gone.
Excellent.
We have $10,000 for bench and trash can replacements within the downtown area. This includes beach as well. So some of our, through the streetscapes, let me go back to the streetscapes. The streetscapes, these black benches will be picked up and put into shaded areas, and we'll replace them with benches that won't give burns when they're in the sunlight. And then additional cost for much needed trash cans and picnic tables, benches down at the beach area. And so
When-
those are not cheap by any means.
So I do have a comment from a former employee, and I need to share that with you later about the current, the ironwork around the
Trees.
trees. So if you could remind me of that, I'll put it in my book,
Okay.
okay? Next page, rails to trails, nothing this year. We're finished, we're gonna do phase 1, and that's it for right now?
I would think that would be the direction of council. We've talked about kind of narrowing down our focus and completing one project before moving on to another. One of the conversations, and we'll look at that cost within our general fund, is, again, the year of planning, working with our engineer to come up with a coherent parks plan so we can identify priorities, needs, and then potential funding outside of the city, grants and whatnot.
Okay. Tony, you okay with that direction?
Yeah. I mean, in the way of building anything there, but this might not be the area to talk about it, but it would be nice to have some kind of program in the next year for Rails to Trails, like a bike,
You're talking about an event?
an event. there.
Yes,
If
and
we
so
could
that's
talk
something that's
about
been
that.
talked about once we
Mhm.
get, we still have one component of the phase 1 on back order, that drinking fountain is in, once that's in place, then phase 1 will be complete, and we'll look at putting on events out there.
And so, Tony, one of the things we talked about is doing like an open house, a ribbon cutting for the phase 1 to acknowledge that the parking is there and the water fountain is there, and then doing some kind of bike safety check with the fire department, something like that to bring people down to encourage using the trail in different kinds of ways.
We did that with the sheriff's department several years ago.
Same thing, just kind of
Bike
reproduce.
safety thing,
Yeah.
helmets and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
So, okay, we have a welcome center, $500, and that was going towards the Beals place? Are we-
Going across the street for any repairs, maintenance, or upkeep to the material that they have.
Okay, and then the streetscape plan, $78,000 is a lot of money to improve downtown.
So I want to have a conversation with the agency, budget and finance, and then with the agency on this. I did a walking tour with our new engineers of the cemetery and then downtown. We talked about the parks plan and then the whole right-of-way plan. Those are their 4 main projects for scope and fees, so council can start looking at planning for the next upcoming years. Landscaping and doing that transition, just the planning part of it, doing the transition from what is there now to a walkable, almost borderline plaza type atmosphere. I don't want it to be a sticker shock when that scope and fee from DMRP comes close to about the $70,000 mark, and that's planning purposes only. That's coming up with a coherent plan of spending.
Don't break anything, Mr. Brown.
All right.
You good?
I don't know. As long as I'm sitting up, I might wind up on the floor in a minute.
So that's just the plan.
Okay,
To
that
get
is
it
sticker shock, okay?
I understand, and so that's why we're talking about it
I was hoping
now.
to get a little bit more than plans out of $78,000.
So, and until I have that document from DMRP, which I've been told will be given to us prior to the meeting on September 13th, and they'll be here to discuss that with council, with the agency. That was the number that I was told, upwards of 50, south of $100,000 for the planning purposes of the downtown area. Now moving forward, it's a very inclusive plan.
And
That
so you can pick and choose which parts and pieces you actually want to spend on.
we're identifying additional revenue sources for these plans with the help of Mr. Cornegay and things that he set in place prior to his retirement with FDOT and things of that nature. So it's hopeful that we'll have a good chunk of this project completed by the middle of next fiscal year, but I do want to prepare you for that sticker shock when you get that scope and fee.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, to go from FDOT grade grass to anything above that is going to be a fantastic improvement to downtown. And I want to do it right the first.
Well, and we're very grateful for what FDOT gave us.
Absolutely.
They could have come in and
Oh, yeah.
resurfaced that project and been done with it, and with the
Fantastic.
through Mr. Cornegay and Stephanie Kapelousas taking that project, we were able to get what we got, and we're very, very fortunate and
Yeah.
very grateful for it. They're now out of
The picture.
they're out of our city. They're down the street, but they're out of our city, and so we can move forward with the beautiful things that we want.
Yes. And we all have ideas. Okay, so we're coming to the general fund.
Yes.
Before we go there, on the streetscape plan, is this something that they're gonna come up with, or are they gonna take our ideas of what we wanna do? 'Cause
So we have shared with them all the plant list and ideas that came from the walk. They also, DMRP would like to do a business-friendly and then a heritage commission, as well as the agency, different parts of the day utilizing our pavilion to do an open house. What works, what problems that the businesses see firsthand, what they're trying to solve, so that they have a fantastic idea of our residents, our city, our business owners overall.
That's
And then they'll come
a great
together
move
to plan.
forward.
So we're looking at, if everything moves in their timeline, probably by the January meeting, being able to approve a plan.
That's good.
Well, again here, I'm just talking, many years ago, this city bought pallets of bricks, and we no longer have them.
That's not true. We do.
We have pallets of bricks?
We have bricks. So years
thought they
ago,
gave 'em
prior
rid
to
of 'em.
prior to 2011, they were donated to Wings of Dreams, and
Right.
we did go back and collect a good portion of them. And so
Oh, okay.
we
Reclaimed them.
we do have bricks now. I will say FDOT is not in favor of putting pavers in there right away.
Were
You'd
those the
rather
bricks
have
that
them-
were used for the cemetery, that were sold for the cemetery?
Some of them, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
They rather have the humps of grass and the sand and all that? No?
I can't speak for
Okay.
the rhyme or reason, but I know that pavers are
Okay.
not favorable with FDOT within the right of way.
Yeah, they're hard on heels. Okay, you ready to move forward? You're looking at income versus expenses.
And so this is the same budget that you saw at the last meeting. I just took away the other two columns because the council did vote on a 4.2901 millage to set it as your maximum millage. Going through, if you go through down to page 2, towards the bottom, we're looking at a revenue stream of about $826,000. Everything stays the same pretty much as far as your expenses go, except for so we've got parks materials. We're looking at $35,000 on the second page, or I'm sorry, on page 3. We have $52,000 for the entire parks budget outside of our CRA. That includes payroll, maintenance, water, electricity. Operations expenses under planner fees, I have planner fees, and I've added grant services of $25,000. And speaking with some of the speaking to the county with some of the projects that we have identified just through various conversations, going to them to partner for their grant services on an hourly basis. The $25,000 is more than sufficient, and that also covers things like water and sewer at the airport, and generator and additional asks that the airport has asked that we cover the grant writing costs of it.
Okay.
Operating expenses, everything is just about right in line as it was for last fiscal year, except for the very last line item on page 3 of the city engineers. I've moved that up to $50,000, just again going into the year of planning so that we can come up with a plan to move forward with the next couple of years and identify projects and priorities. Any questions? All right. Moving on to page 4, everything else is pretty much the same. I put in there $6,000 for additional event support if there's something that the city wants to put on, that dog park events or things of that nature.
What number is that?
It's at the top of page 4. It's 572503.
See it?
Payroll services, we have $167,000. That is to bring the city staff indoors up to where they need to be, taking into effect the new minimum wage and a plan to get everybody up to how that's going to affect us. I have separated out the contingencies for the council. That would have been a $6,000 line item. It's now separate into seat 4, the mayor, for $2,000, and then the additional seats at $1,000 contingency as requested by council.
Okay.
If there's any additional, are there any additional questions for page 4?
No, but in our city manager mayor meeting, I have some suggestions for you on some of the stuff that you just talked about.
Okay. Page 5, the payroll for council, the $23,000 are real numbers based on the cost of living increase that council will receive.
Yeah.
That's entirely up to council and how you want to make that motion.
For the record, we do not make that money, okay? I just want to say for the record, hello, folks, we don't make that money that Mr. Brown's alluding to over there. Okay, we're on page 5. Public
Yes.
safety, code enforcement, all those are pretty much,
In line code enforcement, you see a large jump because we're taking that entire position as opposed to segregating it out by days, but that entire position is being put into that line. And so, I mean.
So is this let me go back.
Sure.
Is this a full-time position now?
Well, code enforcement there's always been a code enforcement officer who works 5 days a week. Some of those are on code enforcement days, and then when code enforcement wasn't needed, was utilized as a maintenance one within Public Works. So what we did is I took that entire salary, and instead of taking it out of Public Works and putting a portion of code enforcement into this bucket and then going into Public Works and taking the remainder out of it, I took the one salary of that individual and put it all in code enforcement.
Okay.
So
We'll
the
talk
only
about that
difference
again.
is where is the line that it's coming out of.
Okay, that's a good point. All right.
Safety and security of $10,000, that stays right in line. The 29,000, we've got to move some monies around, that's not accurate. Going down into operating expenses, it's right in line with our current year budget. So before we flipped on to page 6, are there any questions for page 5?
Point of question. Can you just give me a quick update on Donald Street? Is there anything going on, any work going on at Donald Street? I haven't been over there.
Public Works have added millions to fill in those potholes that were being complained about a couple of weeks or a couple of days prior to the last conversation that you and I had about it. They're continually monitoring that. It's an unfortunate nature of how the road is constructed that there will be potholes. However, when they dry up, they do come out and fill them.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions on this page, Mr. Brown? Okay. Page 6.
Page 6 is a continuation of the operating expenses. You're looking for our Public Works utilities, gas, and then traffic light repair, which is what we contract with the county on. That comes directly out of our FDOT contracts. Personal services, this is payroll for Public Works and taxes. So again, that $30,000 that you see in code enforcement, it would just be split up, and then part of that would come out of this line. It's easier on payroll if we don't segregate that.
Okay.
Community redevelopment, moving down, we've got community redevelopment at $27,000. This is what we're anticipating on taking out of our general fund and putting it into the CRA this year. The $10,000 for the lakes, the $1,500 that has been asked to be budgeted yearly for the centennial celebration.
Can we talk about that with full council, because is that a real deal?
I believe so, as we just received emails that those meetings are going to start again.
Okay, because I haven't seen that it's a real deal, so.
So there was some issues with the pandemic. Once they became the Friends of the Centennial, I think is what the organization's called. Once they got all their paperwork in order, then COVID hit. They were unable to meet. 2 days ago, I've received an email that they're trying to get their meeting scheduled.
Okay.
Who's in charge of that?
Vice Mayor Hart.
Okay. Would they, or, we'll talk about it later.
Okay. The Heritage Commission, their $1,500 that they utilize, I think, as they're becoming more active now that COVID's done. We'll start seeing some expenses from their side.
The Heritage Commission is,
Yes.
okay.
Northeast, the League of Cities dinner, there's nothing budgeted in there because that's a reimbursement, and then we hold, then it comes out one thing, comes back in on the top.
And we haven't talked yet about, it's not CARES Act anymore, it's
It's not CARES, I need to rename that, it's ARPA funding.
what is it?
ARPA, the American Recovery Rescue Plan, thank you. We're looking at, actually that number has since changed since the $350,000. We're now looking at about $380,000 for over the next 2 years. So just south of $800,000 is Keystone, the allocation for City of Keystone Heights.
It's fantastic.
The rules and regulations, guidelines on spending that money was just released, and so I'm reviewing those with the city attorney.
Okay. Is it complicated?
No, and that's what makes it difficult. It's a, you can utilize it for the,
Bathrooms?
no.
Oh, shoot.
Stages?
For business improvement and, so outdoor activities, but outdoor activities, you can utilize it to enhance your parks, but there's specific guidelines, not,
Not tennis courts and basketball courts.
something to that effect, yes. So those are the budgets. It's been, the only one that we did not see today is the cemetery, because that does not take, tax dollars. We're building that out, having a little bit more conversations with DMRP as far as the next phase goes. I do encourage you, if you haven't already, go cruise through our cemetery, as our ossuarium has
Okay.
been placed last week.
Oh, perfect. Great.
Staff is working on rules and regulations, and we'll look at those on the 13th.
I didn't see a line item for impact clay. Were we not including them in our budget?
Oh, I apologize. So yes, we have the $5,000 ask for impact play. Now, this is a brand-new ask. I don't know if this is something that is the desire of the Budget and Finance to recommend putting into their budget.
I do recommend doing something for those folks, because at some point, skin in the game might bring a project down to Keystone Heights that we might benefit from in the future. I would look at somewhere in the $2,500 budget line item. What do you think, Mr. Brown?
Give me a minute. Trying to remember what all she talked about.
Well, right now, I think the push for impact clay is doing something with Operation Barnabas. They have done work down here in Keystone Heights. I know we have a veteran who is staying out at Montgomery Camp as a result of Operation Barnabas's work. And they're under new leadership. So
So is, whatever money we give, does it stay within the city limits, or is it gonna go
Well-
somewhere else?
it'll probably go somewhere else this year.
But your funding, and you would be contributing to the fund, the general fund of impact play per se, and then they would disperse that, utilize that, how their needs come up. Impact Play works closely with Mission of the Dirt Road and some other things that we had going on here. They assisted in the feeding of Clay County. I cannot think of the name.
Northeast, feeding Northeast
Yes.
Florida.
I'm not, right now, I'm not willing to fork out any money for something that's not inside the city limits, unless they can say they're going, this is our project, this is where your money's gonna go. I don't want our money going to north of our city limit sign, the commercial 21. So, but if you want, I mean, we can recommend it to the council, it's up to the council. But I'm just not too hepped on spending money outside the city limits.
Well, I think council can talk about it then. We can just,
We can just talk about it at the council meeting.
If you're looking at a line item of $2,500, that can be found throughout the budget. The only other question that I have for recommendation from the Budget and Finance meeting is, we didn't address it within the CRA, is the $500 ask from Ms. Franklin for the band.
well, here's the thing, and I'm going to go back to the CRA. And Tony, you can argue this with me, okay?
Okay.
I'm open for
I
it.
love to argue.
I know.
I live with 3 women.
There you go. So if we were going to be true to the CRA, then this event, it's Boo on the Boulevard, right, that we're talking about?
Yes, it's Boo on the Boulevard, and she's looking for $500 to fund a band that's going to be playing on the better known as Compass parking lot.
So are any of our businesses open at that time of evening when the event is taking place?
They have been in the past when we had it downtown. Some of them do open.
So
Um,
Julia's Midtown Cafe
Julia's is
is very
open.
successful.
I know
That's-
that the hot dog place, when they were there, they were open.
So we're
Big
talking about
flags.
doing it behind City Hall, or we're talking about shutting down State Road, what-
She's
So
looking
what?
at shutting down South Lawrence Boulevard from Lakeview down to 100, bring back the event as it was in previous years, to where instead
Okay,
of,
here's my thing though. Does she have skin in the game? Because otherwise, this is a Keystone event. This is a city event. This is us funding the event. So if she has skin in the game, let's go 50-50. Let's do 250 from the city, 250, they can come up with 250 for themselves. I mean, my
Well,
mentor, Al Watson, was always like, other people need to have skin in the game, not just the person holding the money.
Well, in the past years, this was started by the, what is it, the Lake Region Business Association? That's where it started at.
Well, no, it was pretty much driven by Jimmy Bush and Roger
I'll argue
Rothwell.
with you. When this all started, it was the Business Association
that was
started it.
years and years ago.
That's been
This
many,
was,
many years ago. And then Jimmy and them took it because of the band thing. And a couple of people from, she's not with us anymore. She got involved with it. And, but I would say if it's a business, it's downtown in the Business Association, I don't see why the Business Association can't go half and half.
I think we need to train them to step up,
Yeah.
right? Because,
I'll piggyback on that conversation. I apologize, but if you go back to the events that we're looking at hosting, the goal of ours is the goal of the cities is that the city will pay for safety and security. Any additionals will be looking for sponsorships in different avenues, as to not spend tax-paying dollars from the cities to put on our events. So the 4th of July, our goal would be just about completely funded except for safety and security from other events, things of that nature. Our events category will be self-sufficient. In Quadas in the past, we have funded security, and it's been and the same with the run. We fund security. It's pretty a clean-cut process. They give us the invoice that they get from the sheriff's office, and we reimburse that agency, the Kiwanis, the Jordan's Foundation, for the dollar amount that they were coming.
so we go back to the premise that, and I totally agree, we need to be responsible for safety and security on a state road, on any kind of city streets or whatever. This is not a city event yet. It's not been dedicated or donated back to us. So is it really our expense to pay for the band? Because we're not sponsoring the event, we're not looking for sponsorships.
And in the past, the band never got paid, but,
Not by the city, no.
Not by the
Not
city.
to my knowledge by the city since I've been here. It's been a different organization.
I think I'd like to keep it clean. I mean, I'd like to keep a clean sheet.
you wanted to argue.
I did.
I'm not gonna argue with you. I agree. I think we should just stick with what we've done in the past with public safety part of it, because that is a very big crowd of people, and we need to have law enforcement here. And I think if the Business Association wants to piggyback up on it and do the band, that would be left up to Ms. Franklin to go and ask the Business Association or whoever to come out with some money. So,
Yeah, sometimes I think it's just too easy to ask, government for money. And we've been really very supportive, all these years, and we continue to be really supportive for the future in terms of safety, security. But at some point, it really isn't sponsored by another group, it's really being sponsored by the city.
but if the city takes this on, we would be responsible for paying for a band.
Well, yes, the city would be responsible for finding funding sources for anything above and beyond. Again, safety and security. Go back to the Orange Park and Green Cove
Right.
Springs, how their events are ran. They are self-sufficient. They go out and they seek sponsorships. They have somebody who comes in. For instance, it would be one of the examples I was given was go find a dentist to see if a dentist would, put $1,000 towards Boo on the Boulevard.
Yeah.
And there's your sponsorship, because it would be a fun play that,
Yeah, candy and dentists, there you go.
Yeah, really.
You know.
So, but, those types of things that,
Well, let me do this, let me say this too, for just so everyone hears it, one time from one of us, is that it's not that we're not against, promoting events. We're gonna do everything we can to promote events downtown. I think it's gonna be really important in the future, especially with funds coming through the CRA, for entities who come to us to show us a direct correlation about how this money that we're using from taxpayers is directly related to growth of businesses in our community, because that's really what this money is for. It's for downtown businesses, to promote downtown businesses, to create excitement about downtown businesses, create traffic downtown. All of those things can be funded through the CRA. And so, is it nice to have a band? Yes. But it doesn't, asking for $500 doesn't tell me as a council member how that $500 is going to directly impact somebody who's going to hopefully open their business doors that night of that event. And if you can draw a straight line from here to there, I think we can look at it. But just to ask for the money, I don't think it's really genuine. I don't think that that's what the tax money is there for. So.
Well, in the past, a lot of your businesses downtown will set up tables and decorate and stuff and hand out candy, and that's basically what they do. They just go up and down the sidewalk. And but in the past, I just don't recall us ever paying for the music and stuff.
Okay, so we're going to discuss impact clay at a council meeting. We're not going to recommend the $500 for the band. Is that a consensus, Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Okay. Anything else come before Budget and Finance?
no ma'am.
Anything for the go to the order? Mr. Ludwig, Mr. Cornegay, thank you for sitting through with this exciting conversation about tax dollars.
Y'all got any money?
You got any candy? We're adjourned.